Welcome to the Apex Insider Push to Cash Long Beach episode. I got Nathan Rogers here with me. This is F1 Capper, and we are going to discuss Indycar. Feels like forever again. I feel like we have these long breaks before we see a race, and again, we're going to have another long break before the next race. So, as always, it's a pleasure to have you, Nathan. How are you doing, my man?
Doing well. Glad to be here, and happy it's race week. Hoping to get a little more from the books here to close out the week, but we'll work with what we have.
Yeah, no, I'm super pumped. Double header for us here at Apex Insiders. We got F1 finally with a decent time, early
Yeah,
morning at least for us, and then straight from F1 right into Indy. I love it, and I do not have obligations this weekend other than it's mowing season. I do have to finally mow my lawn.
yep,
So
yep. I'm there too after all the rain, but
yeah,
yeah, no, that's a good Sunday. You wake up and the F1's kicking off, and then shortly after that you got the IndyCar race, and
it's great.
perfect.
It's great. I love it. Finally can have some coffee in cars right early in the morning on Friday and Saturday. So, but yeah, let's talk about Long Beach. I love this track, just the views. I just have this affinity to the SoCal area, and I think it's pretty cool. But definitely want to get your insights and input. I know you put a race preview out, but yeah, let's hear from you. What you expect.
Yeah, if you want to see that whole race preview, we have it on the Discord, but I'll go through some of it here. Long Beach, I agree. It's a place I want to attend the race absolutely at some point if I can. A lot of people say it's a party that rivals the 500 on a little bit smaller scale. So I got to check that out. And this year's the Long Beach GP's 50th anniversary. They started with F1 and some other smaller things, and then this is the 40th year with IndyCar. Um, so this race is increasing to 90 laps. It's the first change since 2017. It's 5 additional laps from 85 to 90. And I think that's going to make it a three-stopper. We saw at St. Pete that there was no additional laps added, but the tires that they had with the additional weight in the car, like we've talked about, made that race a three-stopper and really difficult on the alternate tires, which their Firestone has announced they're using the exact same tires from St. Pete. So we'll see some similar degradations, similar issues, especially on those alternates. Um, and so what kind of decided St. Pete was that first lap wreck. And so I wanted to look into a little bit Long Beach. Last 16 races, there have been an early caution in that the first 2 or 3 laps, about 50% of the time. So we might see something similar play out. If that first stint does go clean, then we're going to see a little bit different of a race with those blending strategies and just kind of the best strategy and best pit stops, pit in, pit out is going to win. Some more stats here. The pole winners won 3 out of 16 of those last 16 races, which is not very high, but it has happened all 3 times in the last 6 races. So quite a bit, a little more recently. The winner has come from row 1 or 2, 12 out of those 16 races. So it does favor people starting in the front. And the first 2 rows are claiming about 75% of the podium places on average. And then Herta started 14th in 2021, and that's the furthest the drivers come in that span. And only 3 drivers in the last 5 races have finished top 5 after starting 10th or worse. So we're going to see a lot of those drivers starting the first 4 or 5 rows claiming the podium spots and your top 5 spots, unless there's chaos ensues. But that's what we're looking at on average.
Which is very possible, but you can't predict those things. So
Nope.
can't predict them. Good stuff, man. Yeah. So then top 2 rows always typically is going to be a race winner out of that. I think it makes it pretty simple from wait until after qualifying. I mean, I know we will talk about some outrights here in a little bit, but it might be easier for us to say, let's take on this guy because you're expecting a Pelot, you're expecting, I I don't know if Joseph Newgarden will be in that top four, but Penske, let's just say a Penske. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, no. So, based off that, so what are some of the outrights that you've been eyeing?
So all the books, there's 3 or 4 books with lines out right now, and they're all pretty much aligned. And you got Pelot the favorite, Newgarden second, and Herta third there out at 650. And I think those three, the books are right there. The tough thing is those are all pretty low lines to jump on now before qualifying, because you pretty much would need those guys to qualify first row, maybe second row, in order to keep value in that choice. Um, so some other people that you would like in this race would maybe be like a Kirkwood, a Power, and then you got like maybe your Myers Shankars and Rosenquist and Armstrong if you're looking for some long shots. Um, yeah, it's tough right now because I think the books have been a little stingy, but also I think they're a little spot on with where they're at. And so, I mean, I think there could be a place to play maybe like a Kirkwood if you were feeling that. I'm back and forth. I haven't fully decided, but at 900, if Kirkwood get on that front row, you got some good value there. I might take Felix, just a cheap buy at 25 to 1 to kind of qualify in that front row and just give me a little extra cushion of wanting people in those first 2 rows. But I don't know. Is there anything that stands out to you?
And I think Bet India had already posted something about it, and I really did think that like the odds for Scotty that uh, it was 9 to 1 he got, where I was like, holy cow. I was seeing 6 to 1, and I didn't really truly care for it at 6 to 1 as much as if you see it at 9 to 1, that's the one you probably should be concentrating on, just because I do kind of expect Penske to listen. I don't have anything tangible to say they're going to do better here, but it sounded like they had issues in terms of qualifying. They had some issues with, but they do have pace. We know they have pace. They can have pace. And then last year too, I think Joseph Newgarden was actually doing pretty solid until, uh, that train that hit up right on the last turn before he
Yep.
picked it up, right?
Yep. He,
Um,
he probably should have won the race.
Probably should have, right? So it could have been a different story. I think that, and I'm going to, credit Bet Indy on that, just because that is such a good number to take for someone that is kind of underachieving, but I don't think we've really fully seen Penske in their full potential yet. And maybe this is the weekend. I'm not sure. But outside of that, if we're just talking long shots, man, like it's kind of hard not to look at Scott Dixon, to be honest with you. I hate betting him. I really do, because I feel like
Yep.
I'm either on the right side of him a few times, but on the wrong side the other 3 times. But he just seems to know how to manage a race better than anyone else when it comes to these tires and fuel and anything else. But the issue is will he qualify there? I just don't want to put my money on it yet, because that's like the statistics you just pointed out, top 2 rows, right? That's what you got to focus your attention on. So, yeah, I think the Scotty McLaughlin at 9 to 1 is pretty good odds.
Yeah, and we talked about McLaughlin and Dixon in the chat a little bit. I think Maxwell initially shouted out McLaughlin at that price, and I'm getting closer to liking that. When you first glance at his numbers, his average finish is 15 over 15. So, and I don't think he's qualified better than 10th, maybe. And he talked about that on a podcast recently of how Long Beach has been his worst street circuit, and he's acknowledged that, and he focused on Long Beach more than any other track
Yeah.
in the off season, and so that's what's kind of giving me maybe at that number, like Indy Bet said, that is a little disrespectful to McLaughlin, even though
Yeah.
he has struggled here, and I think that's I might end up taking McLaughlin at 9-1 too if it's still out there, and hoping that he shows that improvement of what he's been looking for.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if we just boil it down to who are the usual suspects to be up top, I mean, it's Pelot, no question. You still can't discount Joseph Newgarden. He's top tier driver, right? And then you have this kind of this mix of potential guys in that could challenge at any point. We talk about Herta, Power, McLaughlin, Pato. He may not even be as closer to those two. I would even say Scott, but again, it comes back to like, can Penske get it right? Can they do it? Because what I would see is they get it right, those odds are not going to be there anymore, right? You're going to see it,
Yep.
whatever, shaved in half. The worst case scenario is, yeah, he fucks it. That's it. Your bet's over anyways. It's probably going to be at like 14-1, 12-1, something like that. So this is the opportune time to just, you're taking a chance, but this is the time to maybe take that chance. So
For sure.
yeah. I wish we could talk more about head to head, some props and stuff, but it doesn't look like we have a whole lot. So, I think maybe we could, and I'm just doing one last check on Caesars. It doesn't look like they have anything. Maybe we could just switch over to GridRival, our partners over there who offer us an opportunity to play in the game of sort of, I guess you can call it betting if you want, but it's a game, right? We're doing pick'ems. I think they're absolutely solid when it comes to the lines that they shoot out there in terms of F1 and IndyCar. So maybe we could talk a little bit about that. And actually, you do have some plays, which I loved. One of them, which we kind of went back and forth about, but you love the matchup more. Let's talk about your card that you built out, or two cards actually you built out.
Yeah, so first one, I have Dixon better than 7.0. So what I mean, we kind of you touched on him a little bit to win, and here we're just hoping he finishes top five. So or top six really. So that's a good margin for him. When you look at his stats here, he's averaged a 3.8 finish and hit that number 8 out of the last 9 races here at Long Beach. So. Um, and one of them was when Pato just threw him in the wall a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So, so
That's
he's
right.
really, when you take that out, I mean, he's hitting this year. He's really good here.
Pretty
He won
solid.
last year, and 12 out of 15 on street circuits that he's hit this number. So pretty good statistics wise. The other play on that was Armstrong minus 2.5 over Santino Ferrucci. So when I looked at since Armstrong joined 2 years ago, that's when Ferrucci also came back full time, and so there's been 10 street circuits since then. Armstrong has his 2 wrecks in St. Pete the last 2 years when he was running pretty well in those, but the other 8. This is the difference between him and Ferrucci here. Armstrong was a plus 15, plus 6, plus 9, plus 5, plus 10, plus 13, plus 3, and plus 13. So only one time has that even been close. Armstrong's blown him out of the water. That's probably my favorite play that I found there. Um, I think you'll have some races later in the year where you could obviously ovals and even a few road courses where you'll like Ferrucci, but
Yeah.
he just hasn't done much on street courses. The other play was I'm fading McLaren here. They have not been great here the last few years. I think they kind of struggled to just figure out Long Beach. I took Willpower minus 1.5 over Pato. It's kind of you know it's more about Penske over McLaren here. I think Power does have a chance to win this race, but I just like that he'll be a few spots ahead of Pato. Even if Pato has a decent race where maybe he's 7th, 8th, I think Will Power could easily have a top 5 day. And then Felix plus 2.5 with Lundgaard. Lundgaard with RLL Never really great here at Long Beach. He's had a few average days. And once again, that's a fade on McLaren. So Felix, yeah, I mean, he's hit this number several times in the last 5 years. I think 3 out of 5 and 7 out of 10 on street circuits. He won pole here last year, and then that good Ganassi partnership um, with Meyer Shank. I think he'll be strong again.
Yeah, I was just eyeing that Felix card, and then you got me into that matchup, which is, I mean, it's pretty good too. +2.5 to Christian Lundgaard.
Yeah, because I mean, even Lundgaard could once again, just like Pato, he could have a decent day. Maybe he's in that 5 to 10 range. I think Felix is going to be right there. So we just going to need him to. He doesn't have to do anything above what he would normally do, I think, to cover that line.
Yeah. No, I went back and forth. Actually, what do you think about Rossi here with Ed Carpenter? That was one I wanted to chit chat with you about. Like, I can't get a read on them and Rossi.
They are to start the year. I was thinking, okay, I'm going to fade Rossi like every race.
Yeah.
And then St. Pete, that was kind of working out. And then Thermal, he qualifies like fourth, one of his first Fast Six. When Ed Carpenter's as a team, one of their first Fast Six appearances in years. Rossi's won this race twice, but that was pre-Aero Screen, which he's a guy that his career has just kind of fallen down to mid pretty much since that Aero Screen was introduced. So, yeah, he seemed pretty confident on his podcast when they talked about this race, that they were going to be good. And so that has me hesitant to fade him, but I also don't know that I want to take the other way either. So I'm just back and forth teeter-totter on that one.
Yeah. I just feel like I don't want. I kind of want. That was the one I was thinking about doing worse with Felix better on the card, and I'm getting to that stubborn point. When I get to that stubborn point where I'm like, my mind cannot get off of it, I'm just going to do it, and I'm almost there. So I'm thinking about doing worse Rossi 10.5 with Felix better 10.5, just to kind of diversify out of the matchup, just in case.
Sure.
Because Felix, I mean, the cars looked much better in terms of race pace when, we saw them do so well in qualifying, but in race pace, they seem to have found it. So, yeah. I'm thinking it. I don't know. Why shouldn't I take that?
No, I think I'm there with you. Ed Carpenter, as a team, they seem to have hybrid issues in every event this year, even like the Sebring test and last year too. Towards the end of the year when the hybrid was introduced, there's just something like they almost admitted that they don't fully understand what they're working with. And so, I mean, you always kind of have that like there, maybe you just get the free win when their car breaks down halfway through the race.
Yeah.
But then after that, like if there are 10 drivers from the stronger teams that you would expect to be up there. There's more than 10, I'd say. And so if people play up to their level, I mean, Rossi's more of a top 15 car than he's a top 10 car.
Yeah. Yeah. I have it there. I haven't pushed submit, but I think I'm about to, now that I feel like I got your blessing. I know if I don't do it, I'm going to be mad.
When it hits.
Yes, exactly. But if I did it and it doesn't hit, I'd be less mad because I'm like, okay, at least I tried. I just got it out of my system like a little freaking kid. It's in. I'm doing it.
Let's do it. Yeah, I mean, I still think ECR is going to be celebrating top 10s as a team. So if he beats that, then they're calling it a good day when most teams would be disappointed where they're at. So
yeah, and it feels like it's crowded in that range too. If we're talking about McLaren, they're not going to be as to the same pace as what we're seeing with Ganassi and and Penske's should be in the mix too, right? Like we should. Andretti's in there. Like that's a crowded field for the top 10, is what I'm seeing. Like I just don't see. I think there's a little overreaction to it too right now, and I think that's the opportune time to take that on. So I did it. I'm in. So I'm in on that one. I felt like I
Like,
needed some with Felix 10.5 as well, and it correlates. That's another thing. I feel like that
yeah.
number correlates with both of them. Felix, we're expecting to do much better, and that might push Rossi out. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then you got Meyer Shank, maybe even Graham Rahal. He sneaks in those top tens, and David Malukas. He hasn't shown what he's got yet. So,
Yeah.
it's yeah. I wish we did have some lines on some guys like that, but still some pretty good options here. I think there's potential with the McLarens. I think Lundgaard's actually his no. I don't remember what he started at, but I feel like his number's gone down a little bit to where if you were gonna fade him, it's actually more favorable now. But I would be more interested if I was going to fade a McLaren car and fading Pato,
I was going to say 6.5.
um, 6.5. I think him getting a top five would be a pretty good day. Um, and with it's crowded up there, like we're saying, with Penske, Andretti, and Ganassi. Like for Pato to fit in that top five, there's not a lot of margin for error for him to do that.
I do like the approach with your matchup though over him, because that's what you would expect, is like one of the Penske's power being the one that would knock him, out of that spot, and Power likes it here. So, yeah. Cool. Well, I think we've exhausted all of the plays. And again, guys, I wish we could be spitting out head to heads and stuff. Don't yell at us, yell at the books. Keep yelling at them. Let them get us some lines. Get up to F1 and NASCAR par with line offerings. But let's maybe just quickly talk about fantasy. Who do you think would be a stud? And I know we've probably already talked about some of these drivers. Who do you think is a stud this weekend that you should take if someone needs to fill in a driver?
So I like to look when maybe someone's had a rough race, their price is a little lower than where like maybe like a Kirkwood right in the middle there, or even like a Newgarden. His salary's down from last week, and so I mean Newgarden could win this race for sure. Um, any of those Andretti cars around that 20 million mark, or Ericsson's down there at 16, which this is actually one of his better street courses. I like Ericsson here, so I'd say if you're looking for that star driver to get your double points, Ericsson may be a good look there. Um, yeah, what are you seeing?
Oh man, I've been absolute dog piss with fantasy this year. I'm actually locked up on all my lineups, but if I were to pick value spot, I'm looking at the guys with salary. So going back to Scotty, right? He could lose some more value, but he's already lost pretty substantial amount. So he's almost in that value territory when it comes to just salary, because again, salary you got to pay attention to. Dixon is quite high for his salary, which is surprising. I was going to say him, even though he lost 1.2 million the last race. But I would say Scotty M, if you're looking for like a top tier driver that you need to fill in and you have it, I mean, there's some value there because he's already had 2 bad races. More lower end, the ones I was considering, like Marcus Ericsson is at 16.3 million. He's also had a pretty substantial amount lost. Refresh my memory, like what his performance was here usually, because Ericsson is one of those drivers too where I feel like he's hit or miss as well. Like he normally is a good driver in the series in general, but he's been off and on quite a bit in the past year and a half, 2 years, I would even argue.
Yeah, I think he was top five here last year. He had a chance in the pit sequence to kind of take control of the race, but I think Pelot got him out of the pits, and he was never able to get by him. Um, he's had a couple other races where he's ran right up front. There was that one where he wrecked kind of in the last restart, and the kind of the famous meme of him just like standing off the side of the track with his arms crossed while he watches everyone else race. But
Yeah.
that race, he was up there.
Yeah.
I have him marked down every time I come back around to Long Beach if I get the right odds, or um, if I can find him like a top five. I always like that. So I do like Ericsson here.
Yeah.
Um, I mentioned him last week, all the way down at the bottom. I think Louis Foster's value is going to continue to rise. He's qualified pretty well in both the races. Actually, he made fast 12 at Thermal, which is pretty impressive. Um, I He kind of seems like a guy. I mean, we'll have to see, but he's showing some of that speed that Lundgaard had when he first came in with RLL. And we'll have to see if Foster. I mean, he just had bad luck in that first race, and I think that's why his number's so low, along with just being a rookie.
Yeah.
So I've got several lineups where I've just plugged in Foster, and I'm just hoping to get, just some easy points and a little value out of it.
Yeah. So the way I've spread mine out was, one, I said I was going to get cute and say was going with Joseph Newgarden and Herda. I think I did J New for only 3 races. It's not worked out well for me. I really could use a nice race from Joseph this weekend. It's not
Yeah.
been all like, but my salary's been fine. What saved me is, one, Marcus Armstrong. Siegel last race actually didn't do that bad for me. And what do you know? Rossi. Rossi was my guy. He's been sound. So, and then I've had Colton Herta the entire time as well. So that has not been like something that's boded well for me. So yeah, probably I would say, if I'm not going to substitute anyone, but I am definitely going to be eyeing Ericsson a little bit more, especially if he doesn't have a good race this weekend. I think the value now, he's definitely in value territory when it comes to salary. Like, there's going to be a point where it's kind of like stocks, right? You got to buy low at that point. So that's what I'm eyeing. I pay attention a lot to the salaries. Um, so yeah, I think Foster's a good one. I really, really am mad I didn't do that to begin with.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I think he'll be a guy I'll probably buy into several times this year, because when you can find someone that low, that allows you to take
anyone
a
up
couple of
top.
top guys
Yeah.
that you want, instead of losing it. If Because some of these other guys down there, even though they're a little more salary, I'd much rather have Foster than some of these guys that are a few million more.
I think what I strategically did with Joseph Newgarden is I did 3 races just because I wanted to try to save him for the Indy 500. I think that's why I'm trying to save, strategically looking out, like, what are the races coming up ahead? Where are these guys going to struggle? But also at the same time, we're in this new hybrid car for these new races that I'm like, I don't actually even know myself what's going to actually happen. So um, I think we'll start getting a good read. So after these first 5 races, then you can start seeing, like, who should I be taking, but definitely be paying attention to salaries, the values. You don't want to chalk on like high salaried players, but you do want to maximize your points every weekend as much as you can. So got to find that fine line. But what do I know? Because I am like in like 100 out of 150 people that are signed up. I don't even know anymore.
Yeah, I'm
So,
not doing much better.
so well, cool, man. This has been good. I really appreciate the insights. We'll be around all weekend. If you want to jump into the Discord, the chat is always going with Long Beach and F1 if you are into F1 as well. But you can find us, tag us. Actually, everyone in the Discord is just sound when it comes to shopping lines. So get in there. As soon as we start seeing lines drop, I mean, that's when we start attacking. So I'm looking forward to some of the head-to-head action. So, but yeah,
Absolutely, yeah, I'm excited for it. Hopefully, we get a little more to play.
yeah, definitely. All right, man. Well, we'll see you this weekend. And to all our users again, find us in the Discord, and you can get into the live chat, and we'll be discussing a lot of betting and fantasy and everything else. So, all right. All right. We'll see you later.